The bullet shattered the saloon window 3 inches from Delilah Everett's head, sending glass fragments raining down on the poker table where she sat counting the day's earnings. And in that frozen moment, she realized her father's debts had finally caught up with her in the worst possible way. She dropped to the floor, her heart hammering against her ribs as shouts erupted outside. The year was 1878, and Trinidad, Colorado had seen its share of violence, but this was different. This was personal. Her father had died 6 months ago, leaving her not just the small general store he had built from nothing, but also a staggering amount of debt to men who did not forgive or forget. "Miss Everett," the bartender, old Tom, crawled toward her. "You all right?" "I am fine," she said, though her hands trembled. "Who is shooting?" "Carson's men," Tom said grimly. "They have been drinking all afternoon, talking about how your father owed their boss money." Delilah's stomach twisted. Marcus Carson owned half the businesses in Trinidad and wanted to own the other half. Her father had borrowed from him to keep the store running during a particularly harsh winter, and now Carson was demanding payment she could not give. The store barely made enough to keep her fed and housed. More shots rang out, but these sounded different, more controlled. Then silence fell like a heavy blanket over the evening air. Delilah cautiously raised her head above the table's edge. Through the shattered window, she saw a tall figure standing in the street, his stance relaxed despite the tension crackling through the air. He wore dusty trail clothes and a weathered hat pulled low, 2 revolvers holstered at his hips. 3 men lay sprawled in the dirt, clutching wounded arms and legs. None appeared dead, but all looked thoroughly defeated. "Who is that?" Delilah breathed. "That would be Flynn Foster," Tom said with something like reverence in his voice. "Just rode into town this morning. Heard he was looking for work." Flynn Foster surveyed the wounded men with an expression that suggested this was just another Tuesday for him. "Anyone else want to shoot at innocent people today?" he called out. His voice carried easily through the broken window, deep and steady. The men scrambled to their feet and ran, leaving trails of blood in the dust. Flynn holstered his revolvers and turned toward the saloon. Delilah found herself frozen as he approached, his boots crunching on glass as he stepped through the doorway. Up close, she could see he was probably in his mid-20s, with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of whiskey in lamplight. A scar ran along his jaw, giving him a dangerous look that should have frightened her but somehow did not. "You all right, miss?" he asked, offering his hand to help her up. She took it, feeling the calluses that spoke of hard work and harder living. "I am fine, thanks to you. I am Delilah Everett, Flynn Foster." He released her hand, but his gaze remained steady on her face. Those men seemed pretty determined. "They work for Marcus Carson," she explained, brushing glass from her dark blue dress. "My father owed him money before he died. Carson wants the store, but it is all I have left." Something flickered in Flynn's eyes. "How much does he want?" $3,000. The sum still made her feel sick. It might as well have been $3 million. Flynn whistled low. "That is a considerable amount." "I know." Delilah straightened her shoulders, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "But I am not giving up my father's store without a fight. He built it with his own hands, and it is my home." "Admirable," Flynn said, and she could tell he meant it. "But Carson does not sound like the type to give up easy." "He is not." She moved to the window, looking out at the darkening street. Trinidad was settling into evening, lanterns flickering to life in windows up and down Main Street. "He has been pressuring me for months, first with threats, then with his men causing trouble for my customers, and now this." Flynn stood beside her, close enough that she could smell leather and sage and something else uniquely him. "Seems to me you could use some help." Delilah turned to look at him, studying his profile in the fading light. There was something solid about him, something that made her want to trust him even though they had just met. "I cannot afford to hire anyone, Mr. Foster. I can barely afford to feed myself." Did not say anything about hiring. He looked down at her, and for the first time she saw a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Maybe I just do not like bullies. That would make two of us." She found herself smiling back despite everything. "But why would you help a stranger?" Flynn was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. "Let us just say I know what it is like to lose everything to men who take what they want because they can. My family had a ranch in Texas. Carson's type came through, wanted our land for the railroad. My parents refused to sell. They died in a fire that was ruled an accident, but everyone knew better." "I am so sorry," Delilah said softly, her heart aching for him. He shrugged, but she could see the old pain in his eyes. "Was a long time ago. I was 19, been drifting since, picking up work where I can. But I am tired of seeing people like Carson win." "Then you will help me," she hardly dared to hope, "if you will have me." Flynn turned to face her fully. "But I should warn you, I am not much for pretty words or fancy manners. I am just a cowboy who is good with a gun and better with horses." "Right now, that sounds perfect." Delilah extended her hand formally. "Welcome to the fight, Mr. Foster." "Flynn," he corrected, shaking her hand. "And you should call me Flynn. Then you should call me Delilah." They stood there in the glass-strewn saloon, hands clasped, and Delilah felt something shift in her chest. It was not just gratitude, though she was grateful. It was something deeper, something that made her acutely aware of the warmth of his hand, the steadiness of his gaze, the way he looked at her like she was worth protecting. Tom cleared his throat. "If you two are done making plans, maybe we should clean up this glass before someone gets hurt." Delilah pulled her hand back, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. "Of course. Flynn, would you like some supper? It is the least I can do after what you did." "I would like that." His smile was fuller now, transforming his face from dangerous to something that made her heart skip. "Been eating trail rations for too long." They left the saloon and walked down Main Street toward her store. The building was modest, 2 stories with living quarters above and the shop below. Her father had painted it yellow with white trim, and Delilah had kept it maintained as best she could. A sign reading "Everett General Store" swung gently in the evening breeze. "Looks like a good, solid building," Flynn observed. "My father built it 12 years ago when we first came to Trinidad." Delilah unlocked the door, and they entered the store. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with everything from fabric to tools to foodstuffs. It smelled of wood and spices and the lavender soap she made herself. "My mother died of fever our first year here, but my father kept going. He said she would have wanted him to build something lasting. And he did." Flynn walked along the shelves, examining things with interest. "You keep good stock." "I try." She led him through the store to the back stairs. "The living quarters are upstairs. Nothing fancy, but it is home." The upstairs consisted of a main room with a kitchen area, 2 small bedrooms, and a washroom. Delilah had tried to make it comfortable with curtains she had sewn herself, and a braided rug her mother had made. A photograph of her parents on their wedding day sat on the mantel above the small fireplace. "Sit," she told Flynn, gesturing to the table. "I will make us something to eat." He removed his hat and sat, looking slightly uncomfortable in the domestic setting. Delilah hid a smile as she pulled out bread, cheese, and some cold chicken from her icebox. It was not much, but it was fresh and good. "So tell me about Carson," Flynn said as she worked. "What kind of man is he?" "Ruthless," Delilah said without hesitation. "He came to Trinidad about 5 years ago with money and ambition. He bought up businesses when people could not pay their debts. He owns the biggest saloon, the hotel, the livery stable, and the bank." "The bank?" Flynn frowned. That is a problem. Why? Because it means he controls the money flow in town. Hard to fight a man who can cut off your credit or call in loans whenever he wants. Delilah set plates on the table, her stomach sinking. I had not thought of that. Not your fault. Flynn accepted the food with a nod of thanks. But it means we need to be smart about this. Direct confrontation will not work if he has that much power. Then what do? They ate while Flynn thought, and Delilah found herself studying him. He had strong hands, she noticed, and he ate with the efficiency of someone used to not knowing where his next meal might come from. But he had good manners too, using his napkin and not talking with his mouth full. Someone had raised him right before tragedy struck. First thing, Flynn said finally, we need to know exactly what your father's agreement with Carson said. Do you have the papers? Yes. Delilah rose and retrieved a folder from her bedroom. Her father's handwriting covered several documents, and she had read them so many times she nearly had them memorized. Here. Flynn studied them carefully, his brow furrowed. This says payment is due in full 6 months after your father's death. When did he die? February 15th. 6 months would be August 15th. And today is June 20th, Flynn calculated, so you have almost 2 months. Carson does not seem inclined to wait that long. No, but legally he has to. Flynn tapped the papers. This is a contract. If he tries to take the store before the deadline, you could fight him in court. With what money? Delilah asked bitterly. Lawyers cost money I do not have. Flynn was quiet again, thinking. Then he looked up at her with an expression that was part determination, part something else she could not quite name. What if we made the money? How? I have been trying for 6 months. By expanding the business. Trinidad is growing. The railroad will be coming through eventually. What if you could offer something nobody else does? Delilah sat down, intrigued despite her doubts. Like what? That is what we need to figure out. Flynn leaned forward, his eyes bright with ideas. What do people need that they cannot get here? She thought about it. Fresh produce is hard to come by. Most people rely on canned goods or whatever they can grow themselves. And quality fabric, the kind ladies want for nice dresses. The closest place to get either is 50 miles away in Colorado City. There is a start. Flynn's enthusiasm was contagious. What else? Books, Delilah said, warming to the idea. There is no bookstore in Trinidad. People order from catalogs, but it takes months. And medicine, better medicine than what Doc Harris has. He means well, but his supplies are limited. Books, fabric, fresh produce, medicine. Flynn counted on his fingers. All things people would pay good money for if you could get them. But how? Delilah wanted to believe it was possible, but the obstacles seemed insurmountable. I would need capital to buy inventory and transportation to get it here. I have a horse, Flynn said. And I am good at finding deals. As for capital, what if we started small? I could ride to Colorado City, pick up some fabric and books with whatever money you have, and we sell them at a small markup. Use that profit to buy more and keep building. It was a simple plan, perhaps too simple. But it was more hope than Delilah had felt in months. You would do that. Spend your time riding back and forth to help me. Flynn met her eyes across the table, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. I told you I would help. I do not go back on my word. But why? She needed to understand. You do not know me. We just met today. He was quiet for a long moment, and Delilah could almost see him wrestling with how much to say. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and honest. When I saw you through that window, glass falling around you but standing your ground anyway, I knew you were someone worth knowing, someone worth helping. Maybe that sounds foolish since we just met, but I have learned to trust my instincts about people. And my instincts say you are different. Delilah felt warmth spread through her chest. Different how, strong, determined, the kind of person who does not give up even when any sane person would. He smiled slightly. The kind of person I would be proud to call a friend if you will have me. I would like that, she said softly. I would like that very much. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the evening light filtering through the windows casting everything in gold. Delilah felt something settling in her heart, a sense of rightness she had not experienced since her father died. Maybe before that. So we have a plan then, Flynn said. I will ride to Colorado City tomorrow, see what I can find. You work on figuring out what your customers want most. When I get back, we will start small and build from there. Where will you stay tonight? Delilah asked, suddenly realizing the hour was getting late. Flynn shifted in his seat. I have been sleeping rough mostly. There is a spot by the river that looks suitable. Absolutely not. The words came out more forcefully than she intended. I have a spare bedroom, my father's room. It has been empty since he died, and you will sleep there. Delilah, I cannot impose. You are not imposing. You are helping me, and the least I can do is offer you a real bed. She stood, making it clear the discussion was over. The room is through there. Clean sheets on the bed, and there is a washstand if you want to clean up. Flynn rose slowly, looking at her with an expression that made her heart flutter. You are stubborn, you know that, I have been told, she smiled. But you are working for me now, even if I am not paying you properly. That makes you entitled to room and board at minimum. Working with you, Flynn corrected gently. Not for you, this is a partnership. The word hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility. Partnership. It implied equality, trust, something built together rather than one person serving another. Delilah found she liked the sound of it very much. Partnership, then, she agreed. Though you are still sleeping in the spare room. Flynn laughed, a warm, rich sound that filled the small space. Yes, madam. He retrieved his saddlebags from where he had left them by the door and disappeared into the spare room. Delilah busied herself cleaning up from supper, trying not to think about the fact that there was now a man, a stranger really, sleeping just one room away. A handsome man who had risked his life for her without hesitation. A man whose smile made her feel things she had not felt since before her father died, since before ever, if she was being honest. She was 23 years old and had spent the last 6 months buried in grief and worry. Before that, she had spent years helping her father run the store, with little time for socializing or courting. The young men in Trinidad either worked for Carson or were too intimidated by her independence to approach her. She had resigned herself to a solitary life. But now here was Flynn Foster, appearing like something out of one of the romance novels she secretly read late at night. Dangerous enough to handle gunmen, kind enough to help a stranger, and looking at her like she was someone special. It was probably just gratitude making her feel this way, she told herself firmly. And exhaustion, and relief at finally having help. It was not attraction, not really. Even as she thought it, she knew she was lying to herself. Flynn emerged from the bedroom looking refreshed, his face washed and his dark hair still damp. He had removed his gun belt, and without it he looked younger, less dangerous, but no less compelling. Thank you, he said. For the room, the food, all of it. I know you did not have to. You saved my life today, Delilah reminded him. I think I owe you a little more than supper and a bed. You do not owe me anything. He stepped closer, and she caught that scent of leather and sage again. I did what any decent person would do. Not in my experience. Delilah looked down at her hands, thinking of all the people who had turned away when she needed help. Most people in Trinidad are too scared of Carson to help me, even people my father considered friends. Then they are cowards. Flynn's voice was hard. And you are better off without them. She looked up at him, surprised by his vehemence. You really believe that? I do. His expression softened. You will get through this, Delilah, with or without them. You are stronger than you know. The sincerity in his voice brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She blinked them back, not wanting to appear weak. I hope you are right. I am. He reached out as if to touch her arm, then seemed to think better of it, letting his hand fall. You should get some rest. I will leave at first light for Colorado City. Be safe, she said, though she had no right to worry about a man she had just met. Always am. He smiled. And I will be back before you know it. They said good night and retreated to their separate rooms. Delilah lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of Flynn settling in next door. The walls were thin enough that she could hear every movement, and the intimacy of it was both comforting and unsettling. She thought about his words. Partnership. A chance to save her store and her independence. But more than that, a chance to not be alone anymore. Even if it was temporary, even if Flynn moved on once they dealt with Carson, right now he was here. And that was more than she had yesterday. Delilah fell asleep with the first spark of hope she had felt in months warming her heart. She woke to the sound of movement downstairs. For a moment she panicked, thinking Carson's men had returned, but then she remembered Flynn. Pale dawn light filtered through her window as she dressed quickly and made her way down to the store. Flynn was checking his horse, a magnificent gray gelding he had stabled in the small shed out back. He had his saddlebags packed and his guns strapped on, looking every inch the capable cowboy he was. "You are up early," Delilah said from the doorway. He turned and his face brightened when he saw her. "Habit. Sun is up, so am I. Let me make you breakfast before you go." "You do not have to." "I want to." She was already heading back upstairs, leaving him no choice but to follow. She made eggs and bacon, using the last of what she had, and they ate quickly. Flynn was clearly eager to get on the road, but he took the time to help her clean up and make a list of what items to look for in Colorado City. "Fabric," Delilah said, writing quickly. "Calico cotton, maybe some silk if you can find it cheap. Books, anything popular or useful. Medicine, laudanum, quinine, carbolic acid for wounds. And if you see any fresh fruit or vegetables that would travel well, get what you can." Flynn studied the list. "How much money do you have?" Delilah retrieved the small lockbox where she kept her cash. Counting it out made her stomach hurt. $70. It is all I have left after paying for last month's inventory. That will do for a start." Flynn took the money and tucked it safely in his vest pocket. "I will make every penny count, I promise. I trust you." The words came easily because they were true. They walked down to the street together, the town just beginning to wake around them. A few early risers gave them curious looks, no doubt wondering about the stranger accompanying Delilah Everett. Let them wonder, she thought. She needed help, and she was not ashamed of accepting it. Flynn swung up into his saddle with easy grace, settling into place like he was born there. He looked down at her, his expression serious. "Keep your doors locked. Do not confront Carson's men if they come around. Just wait for me to get back." "I am not helpless," Delilah said, a touch of irritation coloring her voice. "I know you are not." Flynn's tone was gentle. "But I would feel better knowing you were being careful for me." The last two words, soft and personal, made her irritation vanish. "For you then, but hurry back." "Fast as I can." He touched the brim of his hat in a salute, then turned his horse toward the road leading out of Trinidad. Delilah watched until he disappeared from view, then made herself go back inside. She had work to do, customers to serve, and a business to save. But her mind kept drifting to Flynn, wondering if he would be safe on the road, if he would find what they needed, if he would really come back. Of course he would come back, she told herself. He had left his things in her spare room. but a small, treacherous part of her worried that he would realize he had made a mistake, that helping her was more trouble than it was worth, that he would just keep riding and never return. She threw herself into work to quiet those fears. The store opened at 8, and by 9 she had a steady stream of customers. Most were regulars who had known her father, and they greeted her warmly even as they shot curious glances at the spare room door upstairs. "Heard you had some excitement last night, Mrs. Patterson said as she selected thread. She was a kind woman in her 50s who ran the boarding house down the street, shooting at the saloon. "Just some troublemakers," Delilah said carefully. "Nothing to worry about. I heard Carson's men were involved." Mrs. Patterson's eyes were sharp. "And that a stranger ran them off." News traveled fast in a small town. Delilah saw no point in denying it. "A man named Flynn Foster helped me. He is going to be working with me for a while." "Working with you?" Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows rose. "Delilah, dear, is that wise? You barely know him." "He saved my life and he is helping me with the store." Delilah kept her voice level. "I trust him." Mrs. Patterson looked like she wanted to say more but thought better of it. She paid for her thread and left, but Delilah knew the gossip would spread. By evening, everyone in Trinidad would know that Delilah Everett had taken in a strange cowboy. Let them talk. She had bigger problems than gossip. The day passed slowly. Delilah kept busy, but every time the door opened she looked up hoping to see Flynn, even though she knew he could not possibly be back yet. Colorado City was a hard day's ride, and he would need time there to shop and negotiate. She should not expect him back until tomorrow at the earliest. As evening fell, she closed up the store and retreated upstairs. The spare room door stood open, Flynn's saddlebags visible on the floor, and the sight comforted her. He would come back. He had to. She made herself a simple supper and tried to read, but the words swam before her eyes. Finally she gave up and went to bed, though sleep was a long time coming. The next day followed the same pattern. Customers came and went, many of them asking about Flynn with varying degrees of subtlety. Delilah answered as briefly as possible, refusing to feed the gossip mill. By afternoon, she was tired of the questions and ready to snap at the next person who asked. That person turned out to be Marcus Carson himself. He walked into her store like he owned it, which in his mind he probably did. Carson was a big man in his 40s, with silver threading his dark hair and cold blue eyes that assessed everything in terms of profit and loss. He wore an expensive suit and carried a gold-headed cane he did not need, an affectation meant to impress. "Miss Everett," he said with false pleasantness, "I heard you had some trouble the other night. I do hope you are well." Delilah forced herself to remain calm. "I am fine, thank you." "Good, good." Carson walked around the store, touching merchandise like he was evaluating it. "I also heard you have taken in a boarder, a gunman from what I understand." "A business partner," Delilah corrected. "Mr. Foster is helping me expand my inventory." "Is he now?" Carson's smile did not reach his eyes. "That is ambitious, considering your financial situation." "Tell me, how do you plan to pay for this expansion when you still owe me $3,000? "I have until August 15th, Delilah said, her hands clenched behind her back where he could not see them shake. "According to the contract my father signed." "Ah, yes, the contract." Carson's voice took on an edge. "You know, Miss Everett, that contract also specifies that if you default, I get the store and all its contents, and with your current financial situation, default seems inevitable." "I will have the money." She lifted her chin. "You will get your payment on time." Carson laughed, a harsh sound. "My dear girl, you barely make enough to feed yourself. Where do you think you will get $3,000 in less than 2 months? That is my concern, not yours. Everything in this town is my concern." Carson stepped closer, and Delilah fought the urge to back away. I have been patient with you out of respect for your father, but my patience has limits. If I were you, I would seriously consider my offer. I will forgive the debt entirely if you sign the store over to me now. You could use the money to make a fresh start somewhere else. This is my home, Delilah said through gritted teeth. I am not leaving. Then you are a fool. Carson's pleasant mask slipped, revealing the ruthless businessman beneath. And you should be more careful about the company you keep. Men like Flynn Foster bring trouble with them. It would be a shame if something happened to him before he could help you with your little expansion plans. The threat was clear, and fury burned through Delilah's fear. If anything happens to Flynn, I will know who is responsible. And I will make sure everyone else knows too. Big words from a girl with no power and no friends. Carson headed for the door, then paused. Think about my offer, Miss Everett, before you run out of time and options both. He left, and Delilah sank into the chair behind the counter, her legs suddenly weak. The encounter had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Carson's threat against Flynn was real, and the thought of Flynn getting hurt because of her made her feel sick. Where was he? She knew she was being unreasonable, that he had only been gone a day and a half, but worry gnawed at her. What if Carson had sent men after him? What if something had happened on the road? She closed the store early, unable to concentrate, and paced her living quarters like a caged animal. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the quiet was oppressive. She was not used to feeling this anxious about another person's safety. It scared her how quickly Flynn had become important to her. Night fell, and still no sign of him. Delilah forced herself to eat something, though it tasted like sawdust in her mouth. She tried to read again, tried to do mending, tried everything she could think of to distract herself. Nothing worked. Finally, around 9 o'clock, she heard hoofbeats outside. She rushed to the window and saw Flynn dismounting from his gray gelding, his saddlebags bulging. Relief hit her so hard she felt dizzy. She flew down the stairs and out the back door, not caring that she was in her nightgown with just a shawl thrown over it. Flynn was tying his horse when she burst out, and he turned in surprise. Delilah, what is wrong? She had meant to greet him calmly, to ask about his trip, to maintain some dignity. Instead, she threw herself at him, her arms going around his waist in a fierce hug. You came back. Flynn stood frozen for a moment, then his arms came around her, holding her close. Of course I came back. I said I would. I know, but Carson came by today and he threatened you, and I was worried something had happened. The words tumbled out in a rush. I know I am being foolish, we barely know each other, but I was so worried. Hey. Flynn's voice was soft, and one of his hands came up to cradle the back of her head. I am fine. Takes more than a day's ride to hurt me. Delilah realized she was pressed against him, could feel the solid warmth of him through his shirt, could hear his heart beating steady and strong. She should pull away, should be embarrassed, but she could not make herself move. He felt safe and strong and real, and she needed that right now. Carson threatened you, she said into his chest. He said men like you bring trouble and that it would be a shame if something happened to you. Flynn's arms tightened around her. Let him try. I have dealt with worse than Marcus Carson. I do not want you to get hurt because of me. Look at me. Flynn waited until she tilted her head back to meet his eyes. In the moonlight, his expression was intense and honest. I am not going anywhere. Carson does not scare me, and neither does anything else. I am here, and I am going to help you save your store. That is a promise. Why? She had to ask again. Why do you care so much? Flynn was quiet for a long moment, his hand still cradling her close. You really want to know? Yes. Because when I look at you, I see everything I thought I had lost, he said slowly. Courage and kindness and a reason to stop drifting. Because in one day, you made me feel more at home than I have felt in 6 years. Because when I ride away from this town eventually, I want to know I left it better than I found it. And because you matter, Delilah. You matter to me. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could feel it. I just met you, I know. A smile tugged at his mouth. Foolish, is it not? Completely foolish. But she was smiling too, and she still had not pulled away from him. We should go inside, the neighbors will talk. Let them. But Flynn released her, stepping back with what looked like reluctance. But you are right, and I should get the horse settled and show you what I found. They worked together to unsaddle the gray gelding and make sure he had food and water. Then Flynn grabbed his bulging saddlebags and followed Delilah upstairs. She lit lamps while he began unpacking his purchases on the table. I got lucky, he said, pulling out bolt after bolt of fabric. There was a merchant in Colorado City going out of business. I got all of this for half what it should have cost. Delilah ran her hands over the fabric in wonder. Beautiful calico prints, sturdy cotton, even 2 bolts of silk in deep blue and emerald green. Flynn, this is wonderful. That is not all, he kept unpacking. Books, dozens of them, everything from dime novels to medical texts. Small bottles of medicine carefully wrapped in cloth. A crate of apples, slightly bruised but still good. Sacks of flour and sugar. Even a box of peppermint sticks that made Delilah laugh with delight. How much did all this cost? She asked, afraid to know. $60. Flynn grinned at her expression. I told you I am good at finding deals. The merchant was desperate to sell. He gave me everything at cost, plus he told me about a supplier in Denver who could get us more at wholesale prices if we can prove we are a legitimate business. This is incredible. Delilah felt tears prick her eyes. We can sell this for at least double what you paid, maybe more for the silk. That was my thinking. Flynn looked proud of himself, and rightly so. And I have an idea. What if we set up a catalog system? People tell you what they want, you order it from the Denver supplier and charge a small fee for the service. That way you are not risking your own money on inventory that might not sell. It was brilliant. Delilah found herself staring at him in amazement. That could really work. There are plenty of people around here who want things but cannot make the trip to Denver themselves. Exactly. Flynn leaned against the table, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. We could make this store the hub for the whole area. People would come from miles around, and we could pay off Carson and save the store. Delilah felt hope blooming in her chest. Real and strong, we could. Flynn's expression grew serious. But we need to be smart about this. Carson is not going to like competition, and he is definitely not going to like you succeeding. I know. Delilah thought about Carson's threats. He said I should sign the store over to him now and leave town. What did you tell him? That this is my home and I am not leaving. Pride and something warmer flashed across Flynn's face. Good girl. We will show him what you are made of. They spent the next hour organizing the new inventory and making plans. Flynn had thought of everything, from display ideas to pricing strategies to how to advertise their new offerings. Delilah found herself swept up in his enthusiasm, her earlier fears fading in the face of his confidence. Finally, exhausted but happy, they called it a night. At the door to his room, Flynn paused. Thank you for worrying about me today. It has been a long time since anyone cared whether I came back or not. Well, I do care. Delilah met his eyes, so be more careful from now on. Yes, madam, he smiled, then grew serious. And Delilah, what you said earlier about barely knowing each other, maybe that is true, but I feel like I have known you longer, like I was meant to end up here helping you. I feel that too, she admitted softly. They stood there in the lamplight, the air between them heavy with unspoken things. Flynn reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "Good night, Delilah." "Good night, Flynn." She went to her room but could not sleep for a long time, her cheek still tingling where he had touched her, her heart full of feelings too new and fragile to name. The next morning they got to work in earnest. Flynn built a display table near the front of the store while Delilah arranged the new fabrics in eye-catching ways. By the time they opened, the store looked transformed, bright bolts of fabric drawing the eye and books arranged temptingly on the new table. Word spread fast. By noon, the store was busier than it had been in months. Women cooed over the fabrics, especially the silk. Men browsed the books, many buying multiple titles. Children begged their mothers for peppermint sticks, and everyone wanted to know how they could order things from Denver. Delilah took orders as fast as she could write, her heart soaring with each sale. Flynn worked beside her, charming customers with his easy manner and helping people find what they needed. They worked together seamlessly, anticipating each other's needs, moving around each other in the small space like they had been doing this for years instead of days. By closing time, Delilah's cash box was fuller than it had been since her father died. She counted it 3 times, hardly believing the numbers. $240, she said, her voice shaking. In one day, Flynn was grinning. And you have 24 orders for Denver. If even half of those come through, you will make at least another 100 in commission. This is really happening. Delilah felt laughter bubbling up inside her. We might actually save the store. We will save the store, Flynn corrected. No might about it. Impulsively, Delilah threw her arms around his neck. Thank you so much. Flynn caught her waist, spinning her around in a circle, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, they were standing very close, his hands still on her waist, her hands on his shoulders. The laughter faded as they looked at each other, and Delilah saw her own feelings reflected in his whiskey-colored eyes. "Delilah," he said softly, and she knew he was about to kiss her. The door banged open, making them spring apart. 3 of Carson's men stood in the doorway and none of them looked friendly. "Store is closed," Flynn said, his voice gone hard. His hands dropped to his sides, close to his guns. "We are not here to shop," the leader, a brutish man named Jack, said. "Mr. Carson wants to see Miss Everett. Now." "Then Mr. Carson can come here during business hours like everyone else," Delilah said, proud of how steady her voice was. Jack sneered. "That was not a request, little lady. You are coming with us." Flynn stepped between Delilah and the men, his stance deceptively relaxed. The lady said no. "I suggest you leave. Or what? You will shoot us like you did Bart and the boys." Jack's hand drifted toward his gun. "Carson warned us about you, gunslinger, said you think you are something special." "I do not think anything. I just protect what is mine." "What is mine?" The words sent a thrill through Delilah even as fear clutched her heart. This was about to turn violent, and while she believed Flynn could handle these men, someone might get hurt. "Please go," she said to Jack. "Tell Mr. Carson I will come to his office tomorrow to discuss business." "But I am not going anywhere tonight." Jack looked ready to argue, but one of his companions tugged his sleeve. "We should go. This is not worth getting shot over." After a tense moment, Jack nodded. "Tomorrow, then. 10 o'clock, Carson's office at the hotel. Do not be late or we will come back. And next time your gunslinger friend will not stop us." They left, and Delilah sagged against the counter, her knees weak. Flynn locked the door behind them and pulled the shades before turning to her. "Are you all right?" "I am fine. Just shaken." She managed a weak smile. "I am getting tired of Carson's men interrupting important moments." Flynn's expression softened. "Important moments? You were about to kiss me." "Was I?" He moved closer, and despite everything, Delilah felt her heart rate pick up for an entirely different reason. I think so. Unless I was imagining it. You were not imagining it. Flynn cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs stroking her cheeks. I have been wanting to kiss you since you threw yourself at me last night in your nightgown. That was forward of me. It was perfect. He leaned down, his breath warm against her lips. And this is too. He kissed her softly, gently, like she was something precious. Delilah melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt as she kissed him back. It was her first real kiss, and it was everything she had dreamed and nothing she could have imagined. He tasted like coffee and peppermint, and his lips were surprisingly soft against hers. When they broke apart, both breathless, Flynn rested his forehead against hers. I have wanted to do that all day. Me too. Delilah could not stop smiling. Is this moving too fast? We only met 3 days ago. Probably. Flynn pulled back to look at her, his expression serious. But I have never been one to do things slow, and life is uncertain. I learned that when I lost my family. When you find something good, something real, you hold on to it. Is this real? She needed to hear him say it. It is real for me. His eyes held hers. I am falling for you, Delilah Everett. Probably fell the moment I saw you standing in that saloon covered in glass and refusing to back down. I know it is fast, and I know we barely know each other, but I am done lying to myself about what I feel. Delilah's heart felt like it might burst. I am falling for you too. I tried to tell myself it was just gratitude or relief at having help, but it is more than that. So much more. Flynn kissed her again, deeper this time, and Delilah lost herself in the feeling. She had never understood what all the fuss was about before, why people wrote poems and songs about love. But now, standing in her father's store with Flynn's arms around her and his heart beating against hers, she understood completely. When they finally broke apart, flushed and happy, practical concerns intruded. What am I going to tell Carson tomorrow? Delilah asked. The truth, that you are building your business and you will have his money by the deadline. Flynn smoothed her hair back. And I will be right there with you. He will not like that. I do not care what he likes. Flynn's expression hardened. He needs to learn that you are not alone anymore, that if he wants to threaten you, he has to go through me first. You really think we can beat him? I know we can. Flynn took her hands. You are strong and smart and determined, and you have something Carson does not. What is that, Hart? People will support you because they like you, because they want you to succeed. Carson rules through fear and money. That only works until someone stands up to him. He squeezed her hands. We are going to stand up to him together, and we are going to win. Delilah believed him. Looking into his eyes, feeling his confidence and strength flowing into her, she believed they could do anything. They spent the evening planning for the next day's meeting, but Delilah found it hard to concentrate. She kept stealing glances at Flynn, marveling that this remarkable man had come into her life when she needed him most, and that he felt the same way about her. What are you thinking? Flynn asked, catching her staring at him for the dozenth time. That I am lucky, she said honestly. That you walked into my life right when I needed you most. It feels like fate. Maybe it is. Flynn reached across the table to take her hand. I have been drifting for 6 years, never staying anywhere long, never letting myself care about anything. I told myself I was better off alone, but I think I was just waiting for this place. For you. You believe in love at first sight. The question came out before she could stop it. Flynn considered it seriously. I believe in recognizing something important when you see it. I believe in trusting your instincts. And I believe that sometimes, if you are really lucky, you meet someone who changes everything. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. You changed everything for me, Delilah. The moment I saw you, tears pricked her eyes. You changed everything for me too. I was so lost after my father died. I felt like I was drowning and no one would help me. But then you were there, and suddenly I could breathe again. You are not alone anymore. Flynn's voice was fierce. I promise you that. Whatever happens, wherever this goes, you are not alone. They talked late into the night, sharing stories of their pasts and dreams for the future. Delilah learned that Flynn had been drifting for so long he had forgotten what home felt like. That he had worked every job imaginable, from cattle drives to hired gun to breaking horses. That he had seen too much death and too much cruelty, and he was tired of it. I want to build something, he said. Not just fix problems and move on, but actually create something lasting, the way your father did with this store. You could do that here, Delilah said softly. If you wanted to stay. Flynn met her eyes. Is that an invitation? It is. Her heart pounded. I know we have only known each other a few days and this is all moving so fast, but I do not want you to leave. Not after we deal with Carson, not ever. I want you to stay. And do what? Work in a general store. He was smiling, but she could see the hope in his eyes. Why not? Or we could expand, do more with horses. You said you are good with them. We could buy some land, breed and train horses to sell. Trinidad needs a good stable. The ideas were flowing now, exciting and possible. We could build something together, something that is ours, a partnership. Flynn's smile widened. I like the sound of that, so do I. Delilah felt bold enough to ask, what do you want, Flynn, really want? He looked at her for a long moment, his expression open and honest. You want to know what I want? Yes. I want to make you happy, he said simply. I want to wake up every morning knowing I am building something with you. I want to prove to you that I am worth trusting, worth loving. I want a home, a real home, for the first time since I lost my family, and I want it all with you. Delilah felt tears spill down her cheeks. That is all I want too. Flynn stood and pulled her into his arms, and they held each other in the lamplight. Two people who had found something precious and unexpected in the midst of struggle and uncertainty. We are going to make this work, Flynn murmured into her hair. The store, us, everything. I promise you. I believe you. And she did. They reluctantly said goodnight, both knowing that sleep was necessary even though neither wanted to leave the other's company. Delilah lay in bed, her lips still tingling from Flynn's kisses, her heart full of hope and happiness, and a love that felt both brand new and ancient. 3 days ago, she had been alone and terrified, certain she was going to lose everything. Now she had a partner, a plan, and the beginnings of something that felt like it might be love. Real, lasting love. Tomorrow they would face Carson. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The morning dawned bright and clear. Delilah dressed carefully in her best dress, a dark green that brought out her eyes. Flynn wore clean clothes and his guns, a combination that should have looked odd but somehow worked. They ate a quick breakfast and walked to Carson's hotel at exactly 10 o'clock. The Grandview Hotel was the finest building in Trinidad, 3 stories of imported brick with glass windows and a fancy lobby. Carson's office was on the 2nd floor, all dark wood and leather furniture meant to intimidate. Carson himself sat behind a massive desk, looking like a king on his throne. He did not stand when they entered. Miss Everett and Mr. Foster, how good of you to come. You did not give us much choice, Delilah said, keeping her voice steady. Flynn stood beside her, a solid presence. Please sit. Carson gestured to the chairs across from him. They remained standing. Carson's smile thinned. Very well. Let us get to business. I understand you have been making changes to your store. I am expanding my inventory, Delilah said, offering new products and services. With whose money? Carson leaned back in his chair. Last I checked, you were nearly broke. Mr. Foster and I are business partners. He provided the initial investment, Carson's eyes flickered to Flynn. How generous of him. And what does Mr. Foster get out of this partnership? That is between us, Flynn said coolly. But I will tell you what I do not get. I do not get to watch good people lose everything to bullies like you. Carson's expression hardened. Careful, young man, you are in my hotel in my town. It is not your town, Delilah said. It belongs to everyone who lives here. You just have more money than most. Money is power, Miss Everett. Surely your father taught you that before he died, owing me $3,000. The reminder stung, but Delilah refused to flinch. I will have your money by August 15th. According to the contract, that is all that matters. And if you default, I will not default. Carson studied her for a long moment, then shifted his gaze to Flynn. You are putting a lot of faith in this stranger. What do you really know about Flynn Foster? Where he comes from, what he has done, why he is really here. I know everything I need to know, Delilah said firmly, though she felt Flynn tense beside her. Do you? Carson opened a drawer and pulled out a piece of paper. I have contacts throughout the territory. It was not hard to find information about your new partner. Did you know he was accused of murder in Texas? That he was run out of 2 towns for violence? That he is wanted for questioning in connection with a stagecoach robbery? Delilah's heart stuttered, but she forced herself to stay calm. I do not believe you. The accusations were false, Flynn said quietly. The murder charge was self-defense, ruled as such by a judge. The violence was protecting people who could not protect themselves, and I was never involved in any robbery. But Carson is right that I was run out of towns by men who did not like someone standing up to them. So you admit you are a troublemaker. I admit I do not let innocent people get hurt if I can stop it. Flynn's hand drifted toward his gun. That make me trouble in your book. It makes you dangerous, Carson said. And I do not want dangerous men in my town causing problems. Then maybe you should leave, Delilah said sweetly. Carson's face flushed with anger. You have until August 15th, not a day more. And when you default, as I know you will, I will take everything. The store, the inventory, the building, all of it. And there is nothing your gunslinger can do to stop me because it will be legal. I will have the money. Delilah stood tall. And then you will have no claim on me or my business. Are we done here? For now. Carson's smile was cold. But I would advise you to reconsider your partnership with Mr. Foster. Men like him never stick around, and when he leaves, you will be alone again. More alone than before because you will have trusted him. And that trust, Miss Everett, will break your heart. The words hit harder than Delilah wanted to admit, but she refused to show it. Thank you for your concern, but I will take my chances. Good day, Mr. Carson. They left the office, walking through the hotel and out into the bright sunlight. Delilah did not speak until they were well away from the building, back on Main Street heading toward the store. Is what he said true? She asked quietly. About the murder charge and being run out of towns. Flynn stopped walking, his expression pained. Yes. I should have told you before, but I did not want you to think less of me. Tell me now. Delilah faced him. All of it. They sat on a bench outside the store and Flynn told her everything. About the man he had killed in self-defense when he was 20 after the man had tried to rob him. About the trial and the judge who had ruled it justified. About the towns he had worked in where he had protected women and children from abusive men, and how those men had run him out rather than face justice. About the stagecoach robbery he had been near but not involved in, and how the local sheriff had tried to pin it on him because he was a stranger. I have made enemies, Flynn said, men who did not like that I stood up to them. But I swear to you, Delilah, I have never stolen, never murdered, never hurt anyone who did not deserve it. My conscience is clear. Delilah listened to it all, watching his face, seeing the truth in his eyes. When he finished, she took his hands. I believe you. Just like that. Just like that. She squeezed his hands. I know who you are, Flynn. I have seen your character. Whatever happened in your past, whatever accusations were made, I know you are a good man. Carson was trying to drive a wedge between us, and I am not going to let him. Relief washed over Flynn's face. I was so afraid you would send me away. Never. Delilah meant it with everything in her. We are partners, remember, and more than that, what we have is real, and I am not giving it up because of lies and rumors. Flynn pulled her close, kissing her forehead. I do not deserve you. Yes, you do. Delilah pulled back to look at him. And I am going to spend every day proving that to you. They went into the store hand in hand, and Delilah felt their bond strengthen. Carson had tried to break them apart, but he had only made them stronger. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Delilah and Flynn worked side by side in the store, which grew busier every day. Word of their new inventory and ordering service spread throughout the region, and people came from miles around to shop and place orders. Money flowed in steadily, and Delilah's savings grew. But more than the business success, their relationship deepened. Flynn proved himself reliable and hardworking, rising early to help with the store and staying late to work on expansion plans. He was patient with difficult customers, kind to children, and protective of Delilah without being overbearing. He made her laugh with stories of his travels and listened with genuine interest when she talked about her dreams. And every day, Delilah fell more in love with him. They stole moments together whenever they could. Kisses in the stockroom when no customers were around. Quiet conversations on the porch after closing. Long evenings planning their future, because now they both spoke of their future as something shared. 2 weeks after Flynn's arrival, they rode out to look at a piece of land for sale on the edge of town. 20 acres with a creek running through it, perfect for horses. Flynn walked the property with the eye of someone who understood land and animals, pointing out where they could build a stable, where the best grazing was, how the creek would provide water year-round. We could make something really special here, he said, his eyes bright with possibility. Breed and train horses, maybe run some cattle too, build a house, a real home. Our home, Delilah said, and watched his expression soften. Our home, he agreed. He pulled her close, and they stood looking out over the land that could be theirs. Can you see it? The stable there, the house on that rise, horses in the pasture. I can see it. And she could. She could see everything. The life they would build together, the home they would make, the family they might create. It was all so clear and so possible. Marry me, Flynn said suddenly. Delilah's breath caught. What? Marry me. He turned her to face him, his hands on her shoulders. I know we have only known each other 2 weeks, and people will say we are crazy, but I do not care. I love you, Delilah. I want to build this life with you, not as partners but as husband and wife. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want everything with you. Tears streamed down Delilah's face. Are you sure? This is so fast. I have never been more sure of anything. Flynn cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away her tears. You asked me what I wanted that night in the saloon, remember? I said I just wanted a chance to make you happy. I still want that. For the rest of my life, I want to make you happy, so marry me, please. Yes. The word came out choked with tears and joy. Yes, I will marry you. Flynn kissed her, deep and passionate, and Delilah kissed him back with everything she had. They stood in the middle of the empty land, holding each other, and it felt like the whole world was opening up before them. We should tell people, Delilah said when they finally broke apart. Make it official. We should pay off Carson first, Flynn said practically. Show him he did not win, then we can celebrate properly. He was right. They had saved nearly $2,000, but they still needed another $1,000 before the deadline, and they had less than 6 weeks to earn it. They threw themselves into work with renewed determination. Flynn made another trip to Denver, this time with a much larger order and better contacts. He came back with merchandise worth double what he had paid, and it sold out within days. The ordering service became so popular that Delilah had to create a waiting list. Money accumulated steadily. 2,000 became 2,200, then 24, then 26. Each night they counted it together, watching their goal get closer. But Carson was not idle. He spread rumors about Flynn, trying to turn the town against him. He pressured their suppliers, trying to cut off their access to merchandise. He even offered customers discounts at his own stores if they would stop shopping at Everett General Store. Nothing worked. The people of Trinidad had seen how hard Delilah and Flynn worked, how fairly they treated everyone, how they had improved the town's access to goods and services. And they had seen Carson's tactics for what they were, the desperate moves of a man losing control. One evening, Mrs. Patterson came to the store just before closing. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that many of us in town are proud of what you are doing. Standing up to Carson takes courage, and you have shown plenty of it, both of you." "Thank you," Delilah said, touched. "That means more than you know." "There is more." Mrs. Patterson glanced around to make sure they were alone. "Some of us have been talking. We do not like how Carson runs things, how he pressures people and takes advantage. If you succeed in paying him off, it will show others that he can be beaten." "You are giving people hope, Delilah. Do not underestimate how important that is." After she left, Delilah turned to Flynn with tears in her eyes. "Did you hear that? We are giving people hope." "You are giving them hope," Flynn corrected. "I am just helping. We are doing it together." Delilah kissed him softly. "Everything is better together." With 3 weeks left until the deadline, they reached $2,800. They were so close, but the last bit seemed impossible. They had exhausted most of their easy opportunities for profit, and customers' spending was starting to slow as people ran out of money themselves. Flynn stayed up late running numbers, trying to find a way to make up the shortfall. Delilah watched him, her heart aching at how much he was putting into this, how much he cared. "What if we sold my horse?" Flynn said finally. "He is a good animal, well trained. I could get at least 200 for him." "No," Delilah was horrified. "Flynn, you love that horse. And you need him for supply runs." "I love you more," he said simply. "And I need you to keep your home. We can get another horse later. There has to be another way." But they could not think of one. The deadline loomed closer, and despite their best efforts, they were stuck at $2,900. 100 short, with 1 week to go. Delilah was trying not to panic when Sheriff Tom Daniels came to the store. He was a good man in his 50s, honest and fair, though he usually stayed out of conflicts with Carson to avoid trouble. "Miss Everett, Mr. Foster," he greeted them. "I heard you are short on the money you owe Carson." Delilah's stomach sank. Word travels fast. It is a small town. The sheriff looked uncomfortable. "I want to help." "You do?" Flynn sounded suspicious. "I do." The sheriff pulled out a leather pouch. "There is $100 here, a loan from me and some other folks in town. We figured you have done a lot for Trinidad, and it was time we did something for you." Delilah stared at the pouch like it was a miracle. "Sheriff, I cannot take your money. It is a loan, not a gift. Pay us back when you can, no interest." He pressed the pouch into her hands. "Carson has had this town under his thumb for too long. About time someone showed him he does not own us all. I do not know what to say." Delilah felt tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much." After the sheriff left, Delilah and Flynn counted the money with shaking hands. Combined with what they already had, they now had exactly $3,000. They had done it. "We won," Delilah breathed. "We actually won." Flynn picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it. You saved your father's store." "We did it," she corrected. "I could never have done this without you." They held each other in the middle of the store, and Delilah felt like her heart might burst with happiness and relief and love. On August 14th, one day before the deadline, Delilah and Flynn walked into the Grandview Hotel carrying a leather satchel. They found Carson in his office, looking smug and confident. His expression faltered when he saw the satchel. "Mr. Carson," Delilah said formally, "I am here to settle my father's debt." She opened the satchel and counted out $3,000 in neat stacks on his desk. Carson stared at the money, his face turning red. "There," Delilah said when the last bill was in place. $3,000 as specified in the contract. "My debt is paid in full." Carson's hands clenched into fists. "How did you get this money?" "Honestly, through hard work and good business practices." Delilah met his gaze steadily. "Everything you tried to stop us from doing. Now I believe you have papers for me to sign." Wordlessly, Carson pulled out the contract and marked it paid. He wrote out a receipt and shoved it across the desk. "There, you are clear." "Thank you." Delilah took the receipt and tucked it carefully into her bag. "And Mr. Carson, I think from now on we will do our banking elsewhere. I am sure you understand." They left him sitting at his desk, staring at the money that would never give him control of her store or her life. Outside, Delilah let out a whoop of joy that made passers-by smile. "It is over," she said, grabbing Flynn's hands. "It is really over." "It is just beginning," Flynn corrected. He pulled her close right there on Main Street, not caring who saw. "Now we can start our real life, together." That night, they celebrated with dinner at the best restaurant in Trinidad. Mrs. Patterson had spread the word about their victory, and people kept stopping by their table to congratulate them. Delilah had never felt so happy, so supported, so loved. After dinner, they walked slowly back to the store, reluctant to let the perfect day end. The summer night was warm and filled with stars, and Trinidad felt like home in a way it never had before. "So," Flynn said as they stood outside the store, "we should probably start planning a wedding." "Probably." Delilah smiled up at him. "Unless you have changed your mind." "Never." He kissed her softly. "But there is something I need to know first." "What do you want, Delilah? Not for the store or the business, but for you." "What do you want?" She thought about the question, the same one she had asked him that night in the saloon. She thought about everything she had gained in the past 2 months, everything that had changed. "I want what we have now," she said finally. "A partnership built on trust and respect, a life we create together. I want to wake up every morning excited about the day ahead because I get to spend it with you. I want to build our business and our home and maybe, someday, a family. I want to grow old with you, Flynn. I want everything." "Then that is what I will give you," Flynn promised. "Everything. For the rest of our lives." They married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church, with half the town in attendance. Mrs. Patterson cried happy tears. Sheriff Daniels gave Delilah away, and even old Tom from the saloon cleaned up and came to watch. Carson did not attend, but no one missed him. Delilah wore a dress made from the blue silk Flynn had brought from Colorado City, and she had never felt more beautiful. Flynn wore a new suit and looked so handsome she could barely breathe when she saw him waiting at the altar. They said their vows with steady voices and full hearts, promising to love and support each other through whatever life brought. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Flynn kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world. At the reception, they danced and laughed and celebrated with their friends and neighbors. Delilah could not stop smiling, and Flynn could not stop looking at her like she was a miracle. "Happy?" he asked as they swayed together in a slow dance. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she said honestly. "You kept your promise. You made me happy." "That is just the beginning." Flynn pulled her closer. "I plan to spend the rest of my life making you happy, and I plan to spend the rest of mine making you happy too." Delilah kissed him softly. "I love you, Flynn Foster." "I love you too, Delilah Foster." He grinned at her new name. "Sounds good, does not it?" It sounded perfect. They spent their wedding night in the apartment above the store, which they had fixed up and made beautiful together. Flynn carried her over the threshold, making her laugh, and they spent the night discovering each other in ways they never had before. It was tender and passionate and perfect, everything Delilah had dreamed and more. The next morning they lay tangled together in the early light, and Delilah felt completely content. She had her store, her home, her husband. She had everything she needed. "Tell me something," Flynn said, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "Are you happy, really happy?" "I am happier than I ever thought I could be," Delilah said, turning to face him. "You gave me back my hope when I had lost it. You gave me my dreams back. You gave me love when I thought I would always be alone. How could I be anything but happy? Good." Flynn kissed her forehead. "Because I am going to spend every day of our lives making sure you stay that way." In the weeks and months that followed, they proved those words true. They bought the land they had looked at and began building a stable. Flynn proved to be as good with horses as he had claimed, and soon they had a thriving side business breeding and training. The store continued to prosper, and they hired help so they could focus on expansion. A year after they married, Delilah discovered she was pregnant. Flynn's joy was boundless, and he became even more attentive and loving than before. He built furniture for the nursery with his own hands and read baby books with the same focus he brought to everything else. Their son was born in the spring of 1880, a healthy baby boy they named Daniel after Delilah's father. Flynn was a natural father, patient and loving and hands-on in ways that surprised people who had only known him as a dangerous cowboy. "He has your eyes," Delilah said one night, watching Flynn rock Daniel to sleep. "He has your stubbornness," Flynn said with a smile. "Look how determined he is to stay awake." "That is your stubbornness," she corrected. "Remember how you refused to give up on me even when everyone said it was hopeless. That was not stubbornness. That was good sense." Flynn stood and placed the finally sleeping Daniel in his cradle. "I saw something worth fighting for, and now we have this." Delilah gestured to the nursery they had built in the house on their land. The house was finished now, a beautiful two-story with room to grow. The stable stood nearby, currently housing 6 horses they were training. The store in town was managed by 2 employees they trusted, giving Delilah and Flynn time to focus on the ranch and their family. "We built all of this together, and we are not done yet." Flynn pulled her close. "This is just the beginning." He was right. Over the next few years, their business continued to grow. The ranch became known throughout Colorado for quality horses, and their store expanded to include a second location in a nearby town. They had 2 more children, daughters they named Rose and Emma, and their house filled with love and laughter. Carson tried a few more times to cause them trouble, but his power in Trinidad had waned. People had learned they did not have to be afraid of him, and his business empire slowly crumbled. Eventually, he left Colorado entirely, seeking opportunities elsewhere. No one missed him. Trinidad thrived. The railroad came through just as Flynn had predicted, bringing new people and new opportunities. The town grew from a rough frontier settlement into a proper community, and the Foster family was at the heart of it all. On their 10th anniversary, Delilah and Flynn stood on the porch of their ranch house, watching their children play in the yard. Daniel was 9 now, tall and smart and kind like his father. Rose was 7, adventurous and determined like her mother. Emma was 5, sweet and gentle with a gift for working with the horses. "Can you believe it has been 10 years?" Delilah asked, leaning against Flynn's shoulder. "Feels like both forever and no time at all." Flynn wrapped his arm around her. "Do you have any regrets?" "Not a single one." Delilah turned to look up at him. "You gave me everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know I needed. You made me happy, Flynn. Every single day you made me happy." "That was always the plan." He kissed her softly. "Remember that first day when you asked me what I wanted? You said you just wanted a chance to make me happy. And did I succeed?" His eyes twinkled. "You exceeded every expectation." Delilah kissed him back. "And you know what? I want to keep making you happy too for the rest of our lives." "That sounds perfect to me." They stood together watching the sunset paint the Colorado sky in shades of gold and pink, their children's laughter filling the air, their life together everything they had dreamed and more. From desperation and debt had come love and prosperity. From a chance encounter in a saloon had come a partnership that had built a family, a business, and a life that mattered. Flynn had promised Delilah a chance to make her happy, and he had kept that promise every day for 10 years. But the truth was, they had made each other happy. They had built something real and lasting together, something that would endure long after they were gone. Their children would grow up knowing what true partnership looked like, what love really meant, how two people could create something beautiful when they worked together. That evening, after the children were in bed, Delilah and Flynn sat on their porch under the stars. The stable was quiet, the horses settled for the night. Lights twinkled in Trinidad in the distance, the town they had helped build into something special. "I have been thinking," Flynn said. "Daniel is getting old enough to learn the horse business properly, and Rose keeps asking when she can work in the store." "They are good kids," Delilah agreed. "Smart and hardworking, like their father." "Like their mother," Flynn corrected. "You are the one who never gave up, who had the courage to fight for what mattered." "We both fought." Delilah took his hand. "That is what made the difference. We fought together. We did." Flynn was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I think about that day we met. How close I came to just riding through Trinidad without stopping. If I had gotten here an hour later, or if I had been at a different saloon, we might never have met." "But you did stop," Delilah said. "And you did help me, and here we are." "Here we are," Flynn echoed. "With 3 beautiful children, a thriving business, a real home. Everything I never thought I would have again after my parents died. You gave me everything too." Delilah squeezed his hand. "After my father died, I thought my life was over. I thought I would lose the store and have to leave Trinidad and I would be alone forever. But then you walked in and suddenly everything was possible again. I am glad I could help." Flynn pulled her closer. "But Delilah, you saved yourself. I just gave you a little support. You are the one who had the strength and determination to make all this happen." "We saved each other," Delilah insisted. "You said yourself you were drifting, lost, tired of fighting. I gave you a reason to stay, a home to build, a future to believe in. We healed each other." Flynn kissed her temple. "You are right. We did." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of understanding and love. Delilah thought about everything they had been through together. The fear and struggle of those first few months, the joy of falling in love, the triumph of paying off Carson, the challenges of building their business and raising their children. Every step of the journey had been made better because they took it together. "Do you remember what you said on our wedding day?" Flynn asked. "When we were dancing, I said a lot of things. You said you were happier than you ever thought possible. He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the starlight. Are you still? Delilah thought about it seriously. More, she said finally. I'm even happier now than I was then, because now I know this is real, that it lasts. When we married, I believed you loved me, but part of me was still scared you might leave, or that something might happen to pull us apart. But 10 years have proved that what we have is unshakable. So yes, I am happier now than I have ever been. Good. Flynn's smile was warm and satisfied. Because I plan to make you even happier over the next 10 years and the 10 after that, and all the years we have together. How did I get so lucky? Delilah wondered aloud. Luck had nothing to do with it. Flynn turned to face her fully. It was courage and determination and refusing to give up. It was being the kind of person worth knowing, worth helping, worth loving. You earned everything we have, Delilah. Never forget that. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you so much. I love you too. He pulled her into his lap and she curled against him, feeling safe and cherished and home. More than I have words for. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms under the Colorado stars. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully. In the stable, their horses rested. In Trinidad, people they had helped and befriended went about their lives, made better by the Foster family's presence. And here on this porch, Delilah and Flynn held each other and counted their blessings. Tell me about tomorrow, Delilah said softly. It was a game they played sometimes, planning their next day together. Tomorrow, Flynn said, we will wake up in our bed in our house. We will have breakfast with our children. I will work with Daniel in the stable, teaching him how to properly train a young horse. You will take the girls into town to work in the store, teaching them about inventory and customers. In the evening, we will all have dinner together, and the children will tell us about everything they learned. Then, after they are in bed, you and I will sit right here again, and I will hold you and feel grateful for another perfect day. That sounds wonderful. Delilah kissed his jaw. And the day after that, the same but different, because every day with you is an adventure, even the quiet ones. Every day is a gift. Flynn's arms tightened around her. I told you once that I wanted a chance to make you happy. You gave me that chance, and I have spent 10 years trying to live up to it. I plan to spend the rest of my life doing the same. You have more than lived up to it, Delilah assured him. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You made me believe in love, in partnership, in building something that lasts. You showed me that I did not have to do everything alone, that letting someone help was not weakness but strength. You gave me children and a home and a business and a future. But most of all, you gave me yourself every day in 1,000 little ways. That is what made me happy. Not the success or the money or any of it. Just you, showing up every day and choosing to build this life with me. Flynn was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke his voice was thick with emotion. You have no idea what it means to hear you say that. After my parents died, I thought I would never have this again. A home, a family, someone to build with. I thought I was meant to drift forever, helping people and then moving on. But you changed that. You gave me roots. You gave me purpose. You made me want to stay. I am so glad you stayed. Delilah pulled back to look at him, cupping his face in her hands. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Flynn Foster. Right back at you, Delilah Foster. He kissed her deeply, and even after 10 years it still made her heart race. Now come on, let us go to bed. We have a lot of tomorrows ahead of us, and I want to be rested so I can enjoy every one of them with you. They went inside, checking on their sleeping children before retiring to their own room. As Delilah lay in bed next to her husband, listening to his breathing slow as he fell asleep, she felt overwhelming gratitude for the path her life had taken. 10 years ago, She had been alone and desperate, certain she was going to lose everything. Then a cowboy had walked into her life and changed it completely. Not by solving all her problems, but by standing beside her and giving her the strength to solve them herself. By believing in her when no one else did. By loving her when she felt unlovable, and she had done the same for him. She had given a drifting, wounded cowboy a reason to stay, a home to build, a family to love. She had shown him that his past did not define him, that he could create something beautiful from tragedy, that he deserved happiness and peace. They had saved each other. That was the truth of it. And in saving each other, they had built something extraordinary. Years continued to pass in happiness and prosperity. Daniel grew into a fine young man who took over much of the horse training business, showing the same patient skill his father had. Rose proved to have a head for business and eventually ran both stores, expanding them further with Delilah's guidance. Emma, their gentle youngest, became a teacher, bringing education to Trinidad's growing population of children. Flynn and Delilah grew older together, silver threading their hair, lines of laughter and hard work marking their faces. But they were still each other's greatest joy, still partners in everything, still madly in love after 20, then 30, then 40 years of marriage. On their 50th anniversary, their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch house for a celebration. Daniel had married and given them 3 grandchildren. Rose had 2, and Emma had 4. The house was full of noise and laughter and love, exactly as Delilah and Flynn had always wanted. That evening, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Delilah and Flynn found themselves back on their porch. They were older now, moving more slowly, but they still sat together under the stars like they had done for 5 decades. 50 years, Delilah marveled. Can you believe it? Not really. Flynn took her hand, his fingers still fitting perfectly between hers despite age spots and arthritis. Feels like yesterday you were asking me what I wanted, and you said just a chance to make me happy. Delilah smiled at the memory. Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this? No, Flynn admitted. I hoped, but I did not dare imagine it could be this good. 9 grandchildren, Delilah, 9, and all of them healthy and happy and loved. We built a good family. Delilah leaned her head on his shoulder just like she had done thousands of times before. A good life. The best life. Flynn kissed the top of her head. And it all started because you gave me a chance, because you trusted a stranger with a gun and a past. Best decision I ever made. Delilah closed her eyes, feeling peaceful and content. I love you, Flynn, as much today as the day we married, more even. I love you too. Flynn's voice was soft. Thank you for 50 years of happiness, for giving me a home and a family and a purpose, for making my life mean something. Our life, Delilah corrected gently. We did this together, remember, together, Flynn agreed. Always together. They sat in the warm Colorado evening, surrounded by the evidence of the life they had built. The ranch that had started with 20 acres and big dreams now spanned 200 acres. The store that had nearly been lost to debt was now a small chain across southern Colorado. Their children were successful and happy, their grandchildren bright with promise. But more than any material success, they had love. Real, lasting, deep love that had weathered every storm and celebrated every joy. They had proven that 2 people who were brave enough to trust each other, to work together, to build something bigger than themselves, could create something truly extraordinary. You have any regrets? Delilah asked, repeating the question Flynn had asked her years ago. Not one. Flynn's answer was firm. Every choice I made led me to you, and that makes every choice right. Even the hard times, even the struggles, I would not change any of it because it brought me here to this moment with you. Me either. Delilah felt tears of happiness sliding down her weathered cheeks. It was all worth it, every minute. They sat together until the stars came out in full force, the same stars that had witnessed their love story from the beginning. And when they finally went inside to the bed they had shared for 50 years, they went hand in hand, still partners, still friends, still deeply in love. In the years that followed, Flynn and Delilah continued to be the heart of their family and community. They grew older but not frail, still active in the business and the town, still devoted to each other. They became legends in Trinidad, the couple who had stood up to a tyrant and built an empire on hard work and love. When Flynn finally passed away at the age of 87, Delilah was holding his hand. His last words were, "Thank you for the best life a man could ask for. I love you." Delilah lived 2 more years after Flynn's death, still active and engaged despite the hole in her heart. She spent her time with her family, passing on stories of their father and grandfather, making sure the lessons of partnership and perseverance and love were passed down to future generations. On the day she died, peacefully in her sleep at 85, her children found her with a smile on her face and a letter clutched in her hand. It was a letter Flynn had written her years ago on their 25th anniversary. In it, he had written, "You asked me what I wanted and I said just a chance to make you happy. You gave me that chance and I have spent every day since trying to deserve it. But the truth is, you made me happier than I ever made you. You gave me everything. Thank you for a life well lived, for a love well earned, for a partnership that made all the difference. I love you yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Always yours, Flynn." Their children buried them side by side on the ranch, under the Colorado sky they had loved. And the legacy they built, of love and partnership and never giving up, lived on in their children and grandchildren, and in the town of Trinidad itself, where people still told stories of the brave young woman and the cowboy who helped her save her store and in doing so, saved each other. The store still stood, passed down through generations of Fosters, a monument to what 2 people could build when they worked together. And on quiet evenings when the light was just right, locals swore they could sometimes see 2 figures on the porch of the old ranch house, sitting together under the stars, holding hands like they had done for over 50 years of marriage. Because some loves are so strong, so true, so deep that they last beyond a lifetime. Delilah and Flynn had built that kind of love, the kind that changes not just the people involved but everyone around them. The kind that proves that sometimes, when you are brave enough to ask for help and someone is brave enough to offer it, magic happens. All Flynn had wanted was a chance to make Delilah happy. She had given him that chance, and he had spent his entire life honoring it. But in the end, they had made each other happy, building a life together that was richer and fuller than either could have imagined. And that, truly, was the happiest ending of all.